I'm here with Anna, who is on my team, and we're here to talk to you about future-proofing your TA team. We've heard quite a bit about AI today. We've heard about different messaging techniques, so many things that are happening in our industry. So we're going to really add to that today with some additional ways that you can future-proof your team. So I'm Christy Spilka. I am the VP and Head of Talent Acquisition at Smile Brands. I've been in TA for about 20 years. I've done all the areas, staffing, executive search, corporate. I'm also on the board for the Association of TA Professionals, or ATAP. And I have a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. So I love process. I love continuous improvement. And with that, I'll hand it over to Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Vizzini. Christy's always a hard act to follow here, but I have about 10 years experience in talent acquisition throughout various industries. Most recently, I've been in the dental space. Ended up kind of accidentally specializing in strategies for harder to fill locations, which did end up being probably what I enjoy the most. The past year, I would say I've had the pleasure of working with Christy and learning from her.
So we've got a packed agenda for you today. We are going to talk about 4 really main things. One is monitoring trends. So what's happening in the industry? How can you stay ahead of that? And how can you stay ahead of what's happening in the industry? There's a lot of places you can follow and great thought leaders out there. So we're going to walk you through that and why those trends are important to you. Evaluating and innovating. So how you can create those agile, efficient and effective processes. I think it might have been Mike earlier who said, don't just throw AI in to throw AI in. You have to put it into a process that is working, an efficient process. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about networking. Today is a great way to network. We've got lots of people putting their LinkedIn profiles in the chat. Let's network with each other. The networking is how you can learn, you can share. Amy talked about this earlier. Those of us who speak love sharing information, and we also love to receive it as well, and grow. And then developing. So Anna's going to talk to you about really activating your inner talent advisor. So how can you grow and develop and really stay ahead of what is happening in the TA industry? With that, Anna, why don't you talk to us about some key trends?
Yeah, so the first thing you want to do when preparing to future-proof your team is to do some research on the trends that are happening in the industry right now. So there's numerous outlets out there for you to do this, where you can get some great information. So you want to subscribe to newsletters, look at some publications, keeping an eye on annual reports from some well-respected sources out there. There are some great ones, LinkedIn, Indeed. The ERE Candidate Experience Benchmark is another great one. We're actually going to be looking at that in a little bit. Listening's more your thing. There are some great podcasts out there. You can just listen while you're in the car. For this, we actually went a few steps extra, met with some other thought leaders in the industry to pick their brain, and then, of course, leaned on our own experience that we're seeing day to day out there on the front lines. Full transparency, I did even prompt ChatGPT to get its thoughts on the subject, and it actually was pretty aligned with what we found. So not too bad for AI. So from all of that, we narrowed it down to 3 top things that are trending right now. So there's technology, AI and automation, huge buzzwords right now. I am sure this is not the first time that you're hearing about it. There have been conversations around utilizing AI in the TA space for quite some time now. Where we've seen more recently is that the technology has advanced and it's being implemented at a much faster pace in recent years. The next trend to keep an eye on, it's rapidly becoming a major focus right now, is the candidate experience. The candidate experience is something that it's heavily impacted by not only the rise in automation, but also the current state of the market. And then lastly, just volatility. The market's always changing, right? We know this. So how do we stay proactive in evolving with these changes? And then if we take a look at the next slide here, as I was talking about before, the candidate experience being one of the most highly impacted areas, this was something that we leaned on Kevin Grossman for. He's from ERE. He also runs the CandE benchmark survey for organizations. So here is here are the results from 2022 to the last few months of 2024. So the survey asked, read the bottom there. How would you rate recruiting and candidate experience through the lens of your candidate? So the survey asked employers this. Their responses fell into 4 categories. Lagging, if you could take a look down at the bottom there, that blue line, lagging, which would be at the bottom, is lagging, improving, competing, and leading. Leading being these companies thought they're absolutely killing it. So if you could see, lagging went from 2% to 9%. It's a pretty big jump for 2 years. Companies, realizing they're behind the curve here, that could be attributed to a multitude of things, not leveraging the tools needed to keep up with the market volatility or keep up with the higher rate of applications. Those can all be factors here. And then if you look at competing versus leading, as you can see in 2022, there was a much bigger gap than there is now. These last few months here, that gap really tended to close. I would say it's safe to assume these companies that were competing or keeping up started to reevaluate, implement changes, needed to stay ahead of the market, which bumped them into the leading category. Companies that were leading made the changes necessary to continue being successful, and that's where that gap closed a little bit. So this is from the perspective of employers and where they would rank themselves. So now if we take a look, taking a look at what employers think and how employers feel about how they're doing, now let's take a look at how the candidates are feeling. Not sure if it comes as a surprise, but there's kind of a contradiction there. Candidate contentment is down and candidate resentment is up. So it's down 5% in the US, 11% in Latin America, and 8% in EMEA. Candidate resentment is up 6% in the US, 7% in Latin America, 10% in EMEA. So biggest takeaway here, I would say, is to understand the ripple effect of candidate resentment and really what candidate resentment means. So candidate resentment can mean a whole slew of things. It can come from poor communication, lack of feedback, long delays in the hiring process, unprofessional behavior from recruiters, unclear expectations when it comes to job descriptions, that the list can go on and on. If consistent enough, those kinds of things will eventually have a negative impact on your employer brand and on your reputation, kind of putting you in a hole that you've got to dig yourself out of then, right? So good news, now that you know, you can fix it. So now we're going to take a look at how you can start taking those steps towards improving your process.
Thanks, Anna. And I see in the chat, this is definitely resonating with a lot of people in the audience. Audrey saying she thought the numbers would have even been higher. So let's see what we can do about this to give candidates a better experience. So when we think about innovating, as I mentioned, I have a Lean Six Sigma green belt. I like to look at things through the lens of Lean Six Sigma. I mean, even folding my laundry, I fold my laundry differently than I did before I had Lean Six Sigma. So when I think about evaluating and innovating, it's really, where do we need to improve now? Where do we need to improve in the future? So here are some things that we're going to go ahead and get done now. These things are going to be larger, bigger projects. We're going to get these taken care of over the next couple of years. And how are you going to address changing candidate expectations? Candidates are in a digital world. How do you get to them where they are in time? How do you get to them more quickly? Rather than, waiting 3-4 days to get back to a candidate, can you get to them in 0 days? These are all things that we can be asking ourselves right now. So the first thing is to document. Look at your recruiting process. Look at it from start to finish and document the whole thing. I mean, if you send an email, if you have to pick up the phone to make a phone call, whatever that thing is, document it in a workbook. There are some great tools out there like Lucidchart and Visio that you can use to make a workflow that would be really helpful for you. But jot down every single thing. Also jot down variation. So maybe if you're hiring in sales, you do it this way, but if you're hiring in IT, you do it that way. It's going to be really illuminating, I promise you, once you get all of this written down. Then go ahead and add in your KPIs and your SLAs, along with any qualitative data that you have. So by that, I mean, what is your cost per applicant coming in the door? How long does it take a candidate to apply? What is the feedback that you're getting from candidates? Do they like that part of your process? Are you getting feedback from them that they don't like your offer process? Put that in the offer area of your workflow. So just get all that data in there, including feedback that you're getting. If you're not surveying your candidates regularly, I would recommend doing that. You can do that through free tools like SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey has a free Net Promoter Score template that you can use up to a certain number of responses. Over that, you move into a paid version, but it's still pretty cheap. There's also other tools out there that will give you more in-depth information, like the Candy process uses Surveil, and there's other survey tools out there as well. You can pulse your candidates all throughout the entire process. Put a link in the email so that they can give you feedback all the way through. If you're just surveying your hires, you're missing out on a lot of great data. So take all of that, get all that feedback, and then think about your business goals, your hiring goals, and your market trends. So are you opening new locations this year? That's really relevant to how you're going to plan for your hiring for the year. Assess your flow chart, your KPIs, your SLAs, and your whole flow chart for improvement opportunities. It's going to be really obvious really quickly. You're going to look at this thing and say, whoa, why is it taking us 10 days on average to move from interview 1 to interview 2? Whoa, I thought it was only taking us, a minute to apply on our website, but it's actually taking candidates 4 minutes. I wonder why that's happening. And then you're going to start deep diving into this information to get more data. For example, if it's taking 10 days between interview 1 and interview 2, you might then go look further. Is it taking 5 days for the sales team and it's taking 10 days for the IT team? Why is that happening? So just keep pulling that data and assess that. Get your team together, start talking about improvement opportunities, and this is going to become your 2B flow chart. So you're going to build a 2B. What do we want it to look like? What are the KPIs and SLAs that we would like to achieve that we feel will be a good experience for our candidates and that realistically we can achieve? Also think about where you can automate and where you can use AI, and we're going to talk about AI in a minute here and some ways that you can potentially apply that to your process and challenge assumptions. Maybe it takes you 4 or 5 days to get back to a candidate to apply in today's world. Could that be 0 minutes? Could you have a chatbot on your career site that they can apply with and that they can get on your calendar right away? I know that sounds scary. You're like, whoa, I don't want to get loaded up with interviews. But there's ways that you can do this and talk to vendors to see what might be applicable for your business. And then innovating. So researching, doing vendor roadshows, getting references, build your plan. 1 year, I did this in an organization. We went on a vendor roadshow, and this was when AI was really starting to get more in the market, chatbots. Everybody was talking about chatbots. And we did a roadshow. We went around and we talked to so many different tech vendors. And I just would reach out to somebody on LinkedIn every single week and say, hey, I saw what you're doing with X, Y, and Z. I'd love to talk to you about that. And in turn, I'm happy to share some things that we're doing at my organization as well. And I spoke to a whole bunch of people over a period of time, vendors, as well as people in the industry and talent acquisition, learned so much. And we were able to apply some really innovative technology and improve our processes. So that can be really useful. Use OKRs. Check out a book called Radical Focus. It's really good. And it talks about objectives and key results. This can help you stay on track. It can seem like a lot, like, how do you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time type of thing? It can seem like a lot when you have all of this to do and you say, I want to improve in all of these different areas. But setting some objectives, for example, your objective might be, I want to achieve a world-class candidate experience. I want to achieve a plus 65 candidate net promoter score. That's your key result. That's your North Star. And here are some initiatives that I would like to do in order to achieve that. And this quarter, we're going to do these 5 things. And then next quarter, we're going to do these 5 things. It really helps keep everyone on track. And like we heard earlier, Amy was talking about this with volunteering and going and getting on projects. A great way to learn more about AI or tech or your ATS, anything, is to hop on a project with a team that is improving it. So having people volunteer to work on these projects can be really useful for everyone. And then make sure you have controls and continuous improvement in place. So if I put this new process in, how am I going to make sure that people don't go back to their old ways? Finally, there's a website here on the bottom of the screen, talenttechlabs.com. If you haven't checked it out, I would check it out. It's a really cool website, and it actually lets you like pick different areas of the recruiting process and see all of the different vendors, tech vendors, that have products in all of those different areas, and can be really useful when you are going through a process like this. With that being said, this is a super high level workflow, just to kind of give you a visual. I'm a visual person. I don't know if you are too, but this is super high level. Yours is going to have so much more detail, but this is really just showing you map out those steps of the process. Do you have a phone call? Do you have a text message? Do you have an email? What are the different KPIs and SLAs throughout the entire process? And this is really going to help you get started on your road to improving and making sure that you are ready to tackle whatever comes forward in the future. So with that said, thinking about AI as a co-pilot. So I've had many conversations with Al Smith, who was the CTO at iCIMS, and he always talked about AI as a co-pilot. And I totally feel that way. I don't feel that AI is taking over our jobs in TA. Some may disagree. I don't feel that way. I feel like AI is a great co-pilot. I think AI will take over certain tasks. For example, put your hand in the chat if you love scheduling interviews. I don't think there's going to be very many people that love that. What time are you free? What time are you free? Oh, darn it, you're no longer free on that time block. Okay, right? We don't like it. So I would be more than happy to have AI do that task for me. I'm sure that you feel the same way. I'm getting lots of thumbs down. Yes, exactly. We don't like it. So there's lots of things that AI can do for us. So this is actually a really good thing for us, that this is becoming more and more of a trend. And so what can AI do for us? It can help us write job ads. I am going to preface this by saying it's only as good as you put in what you put into it. So I talk to ChatGPT all the time, my buddy Chat, I call it. And I'll put something in there and I'll say, hey, write a job ad for this job. And it's not so great. But then I'll do an alignment meeting, get all this great detail, and then I'll go put that in ChatGPT and say, write me a job ad. And it is really good. And then I'll say, hey, using all this information I just gave you, can you write some interview questions? And they are really good. I tweak them. I'm still putting the human piece of it. It's a co-pilot. I'm not just going to use what ChatGPT gives me and then go call that a day, but it saves time. It gets you there. It gives you a starting point. Sourcing Hire Easy uses AI. There's some great AI capability in Hire Easy. So sourcing is going to be really helpful for us. Resume screening and ranking, there are things you have to watch out for there. I think it was maybe Brian's, or maybe it was Mike. Somebody talked about that earlier today with making sure that you have ethical AI and all of those things. But there are places where AI can support screening, engaging, scheduling, like I said, personalized communications. Put something into it though, hey, I'm writing, I want to write this engagement to candidates. I'm going to be using it on LinkedIn, and here are all the details. Don't just say, please write me a reach out campaign for a graphic designer as an example, because you won't get as good of information. Predictive analytics, this is huge. ChatGPT is really good at this, and generative AI, I'll say, and not just ChatGPT, but generative AI is really good at this, and you can give it a set of data or ask for future trends, and it's going to help you with that. Talent market data, what's the addressable market for these roles in a given area, all of those things. And Hire Easy, by the way, does a great job with that as well. With that being said, I got some inspiration from Hung Lee. He had a recent recruiting brain food post. I think it was on Monday that he posted it. So you can check out Hung Lee on LinkedIn, a great person to follow. He's got some good content out there. And he asked ChatGPT for some tasks that might be automated that recruiters do today at some point in the future, and that the generative AI will have less of an opportunity to automate. And he actually has a list of 100 skills. There's a table on the website on Recruiting Brain Food of 100 different skills and the percentage of likelihood that it can be automated by AI. And so I look at this in two ways. One is, where might you focus your development as a TA professional? And two, where might you think about in your recruiting process, you can lay in some automation because AI is going to be able to handle that task really well. And where are the places where AI is not going to be able to handle that task really well? So if we just look at, I'm not going to read through all of these, but if you look at a couple on the left, resume screening and candidate sourcing, we talked about interview scheduling, database entry and updating. This is really interesting, how it might help us with keeping phone numbers and email addresses and all those different things up to date, somebody changing jobs. These things on the left, for the most part, I would say outside of maybe hiring trends, I think that might take a little bit more of that human piece of it. These are things that take up a good amount of time. I don't remember the exact stat, but it was something like from a screening perspective, from an interview scheduling perspective, recruiters take a certain percentage of their time every day just interview scheduling, and it was a staggering stat. So if we can think about how we can reduce some of this, we can spend more time on the things on the right. And these are the areas, I don't know about all of you, but I really enjoy these areas on the right. The alignment meeting, defining those performance objectives, understanding the nuances of the role, being ongoing calibration with those leaders. Why are you defining this candidate? Let's talk about it. What happened? What questions did you ask? How did they answer it? These are things that AI is not going to take over, at least anytime in the near future. And these are things that as TA professionals, we can focus our own development on. I love performance-based hiring, Lou Adler's performance-based hiring. I highly recommend that training that he does as well for this. That first conversation is so critical. Steve Levy is going to talk about this at RecruitCon over the next couple of days. His whole topic is on this one thing. That's how important it is. So we can spend our time really focused on getting better and better at that part of the process and becoming more of a talent advisor. Relationships. Put your hand in the chat if you've had a challenging hiring manager this week or a challenging candidate. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of hands in there. Somebody did something and you were like, oh, what? Right? Yeah, everybody's putting their hands up in the chat. Yes. AI is going to have a hard time replicating your ability to handle those nuanced situations that happen, to being that advisor for the manager, for the candidate, helping the manager through the interview process and helping them with, okay, what did the candidate say? Let's talk about this. Maybe we should have a second person interview. All of those things that all of you do so well are things that we should continue to focus on because we can always get better. We should continue to focus our development in these areas. And spend more time in these areas. So instead of interview scheduling, we can be talking to candidates because that's what we all enjoy doing. Negotiation, AI is going to have a hard time with that. Understanding motivations, career goals, and really, getting that offer to a close. So hopefully that's helpful context when it comes to AI. I thought this was a really interesting study. By the way, I asked ChatGPT for this information and got this from ChatGPT directly. So I thought that was pretty interesting if you were wondering what the source of this information was. So I'm going to take us to networking and then Anna's going to take over here. But from a networking perspective, there are so many ways that you can network. Networking is really important. We talked about learning and developing as TA professionals. AI is coming. I'm sorry, AI is not coming. AI is here. What we've been talking about in terms of the future is here now. So it's really important that we try to stay ahead of the game and prepare for additional things that are coming in the future. And we do that together. We do that on calls like this, on community, joining associations, the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals. As I mentioned, I'm on the board. We have Global TA Day coming up on September 4th. The website is right here on this slide. Another day where you can get tons of information and lots of great presenters. There's Career Crossroads, another great community, Jerry Crispin and Chris Hoyt. Talent Brand Alliance is great for you employer branders out there. Amazing information and things that you can learn from each other through these associations. Events, RecFest is coming up. Raise your hand in the chat if you're going to RecFest. Anna and I will be at RecFest. ERE, SourceCon, Talent 42, there's so many things. Global TA Day, there's so many great events. This is just some of them. By the way, actually, if you go to Recruiting Brain Food, Hungley has a great list of TA events as well, so you can check that out. And then thought leadership, Yuri Recruiting Daily, Josh Burzen, there's podcasts, Chad and Cheese and Matt Alder, Recruiting Future are a couple of my favorites, but just listening to what's happening in your industry, what other people are doing, and having those conversations can really help you advance and can really help you make sure that you are ready for the future. So with that, Anna, I'm going to hand it over to you for developing.
Yes, thank you. So lastly, just want to touch on 4 ways that you can continue to develop your capabilities and begin to transition from order taker to talent advisor. So first, analytics, right? One of the biggest steps you can take towards being seen as a talent advisor is utilizing data to drive your conversations, whether it be an intake call, a meeting with the business, developing team strategies. Bringing data to back up what's happening in the market and what you're seeing is going to help drive solutions and help implement the changes that you need to be successful. Talent attraction, lead the charge, right? Lead the charge to get everybody on board with being a talent ambassador or a brand ambassador, sorry. Bring engaging ideas to the table, create new and innovative content, share that with your hiring managers, tell them to share it from there, and on and on. This is how you scale, how you stay ahead, how you build your brand, how you build healthy pipelines. It's all a ripple effect from there. As Christy talked about a little bit, align and interview. Don't underestimate the importance of your alignment calls or your intake calls, whatever you refer to them. It's a great opportunity to set the foundation for a successful partnership and a fantastic hire, and probably in record time. And then lastly, big part of what we all talked about today, technology. You have to grow with the evolving changes and advancements in technology. So make it your friend, learn about it, learn about all the different kinds of technology that's out there, make informed decisions about what works best for your organization, what you're looking to get out of the technology that you're putting in. So those would be the 4 cornerstones to focus on that you could start doing right away. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time. That was really all we had today.